The Legend of Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. It took a week to arrive on Haha Island. He had traveled to Nagi Island first, then traveled down to Ouzu Island and left from there to the main island of Sea Country, Haha Island. He learned of a race called the Todoroki Shrine Race, held every 4 years while on Ouzu Island. Apparently to avoid bloodshed, many of the local crime bosses in Degarashi Port in Tea Country sponsor a runner to compete in the race. They start at Degarashi Port, then travel north up the coast till they reach a certain fishing village. From there they take a small boat and travel to Nagi Island and retrieve a jewel from the Madoroki Shrine on the island and run to the Todoroki Shrine on Ouzu Island. The first to arrive at the shrine wins the race, and the family that sponsored the runner wins control of Degarashi Port for 4 years. He would have loved to have watched it, but unfortunately the next race wasn't until 3 years. While in Sea Country, he decided to see if he could advance his Suiten manipulation and his Hyoten as well, to the point of being able to draw water from the air like the Naidam Hokage did. It was currently the middle of July, and after 6 months of training with help from his Tiju Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, he was able to draw enough moisture from the air quick enough to use techniques up to C rank in battle. During his training he heard rumors of a Kaima, a sea monster that attacked ships and inhabited Kika Island. Also, any people that traveled too close to the island disappeared. Deciding to check it out, he salvaged a boat and headed over to the island at first light. When he traveled to the island, he started to sense something. He looked around and realized it was coming from underneath him. He jumped onto the ocean right before something broke through his ship. He caught a brief glimpse of what it looked like before it went back underwater. Whatever it was, it had green scale-like skin, fins and gills. He also thought he saw a young face of a girl. He ran atop the water heading towards the island. When he arrived, he could barely smell a lingering scent of snakes. Orochimaru, he thought. He traveled further into the island following what appeared to be a path that leads to a cave. He traveled inside and came upon a compound. He could smell snakes in here as well and knew this was one of Orochimaru's sick experiments from the various test tubes lying around. He created some shadow clones in each room he traveled through to go through any information he would find useful and destroy everything else, and plant exploding tags to destroy this place once he left. As he traveled further into the compound, he started to hear voices. One sounded like a young girl and the other a man. "Did you kill him?" he heard the man ask. "No, he must be a ninja, cause I saw him run across the water to the island here," he heard the voice of the girl say. "We must not let him to interfere. Once I finish my research, I will have my revenge on Orochimaru for abandoning our research," the man said. "Then you will change me back to being normal, right? You promised if I helped you Amachi you'd cure me of what you did to me," the girl said. "Of course, Isaribi, you have been most helpful, and once this is over I shall cure you," the man identified as Amachi said with a smile. The girl identified as Isaribi gave a small smile back. When they were finished, Naruto decided to make his presence known and entered the room. It was a cove and there was a small engine-powered boat in a small dock. Amachi and Isaribi were startled when they heard the doors open. "Well, that was certainly interesting. But what I'm really pissed off is the fact that you are lying to the girl. I've read your research on my way down here and there was no mention of a cure. In fact, in your personal notes you stated that there was no cure and that you planned to dissect her once she was no longer useful," Naruto said and started releasing killing intent. Amachi fell down and started sweating from the key, killing intent. He felt like his heart was about to explode. Isaribi was feeling it as well, but it wasn't as bad. Her mind was in turmoil at the moment though from what she heard. "No cure. What does he mean, no cure? Amachi promised me he could cure me. And he said Amachi was going to dissect me," she thought. She looked at Amachi, then Naruto, then back to Amachi. Was he telling the truth? Is there really no cure? Have you been lying to me the entire time? She yelled. Naruto let his ki go and let Amachi respond. "Why, yes, you stupid girl. I've been using you this entire time. How does it feel knowing all those innocent people you killed and captured for me in exchange for curing you were pointless?" Amachi chuckled. Isaribi looked down, shaking in rage and sadness. She transformed into her Kaima form and shouted at Amachi, "I'll kill you." Amachi reached into his coat and pulled out a smoke bomb and tossed it onto the ground. When it cleared, he was in the boat heading out off the cove. Isaribi jumped in the water and followed. Naruto created a few more clones and had them do the same as the others. He jumped onto the water and followed the others and heard the sound of explosions a few seconds later behind him. When Naruto found them, they were already fighting. Amachi had transformed into a Kaima as well and was beating Isaribi. He was about to kill her when Naruto intervened and scooped her out of the way. He placed her onto the local shore. "Stay here, Isaribi. Let me finish this," Naruto said, and with that he turned back to Amachi. Amachi shot out a blast of water from his mouth at Naruto. He dodged it and inhaled and thought, "Futen. Daitapa, wind release. Great breakthrough," and blew a large gust of wind at Amachi. Amachi was too slow to dodge it and got hit. He got up with numerous cuts and went through some hand seals and slammed them on the water. Naruto watched as a giant creature made of water slowly appeared. Amachi started laughing and said, "Behold my greatest project. I name it Umabozu. It is indestructible," as he continued to laugh. Naruto eyed the beast and thought, it's only water being held together by chakra. The only way to destroy it would be to completely evaporate it. Naruto quickly thought, Kaden. Gokakyu no Jutsu, fire release. Great fireball technique, and sent out a giant fireball followed by a couple hand seals and yelling out Futen. Tatsu no Oshigoto, wind release. Great task of the dragon, and a giant tornado appeared. It combined with the fireball, turning the flames white, making it a giant white flaming tornado. It impacted Umabozu as well as Amachi. The flames were so intense that each was either totally evaporated or turned to ashes. Naruto turned around and headed back to where Isaribi was. Speaking of Isaribi, she was completely dumbfounded. During the battle she had dropped her transformation when she thought that this hot blonde would be killed just like the others, especially when Amachi summoned Umabozu. But he completely destroyed both of them with only 2 jutsu. 2 jutsu. She saw him coming towards her and she was terrified. Naruto saw the fear in her eyes. He slowly kneeled in front of her and smiled. "Hello. My name is Naruto. Yours is Isaribi if I remember correct?" Naruto asked. Isaribi nodded. "Hi, that is correct. What are you going to do to me?" Naruto continued smiling at her and said, "Well, that is up to you. I might be able to heal you, and after I'm finished you can stay with me while I remain for the remainder of my time in Sea Country, or you can leave any time you feel like it, but I don't think the people will accept you after what you've done, even if you somehow return to normal." "Why? Why would you want to help me after everything you know I've done?" she asked with tears in her hers. Naruto sighed and said, "Because I know what it's like to be seen as a monster. To be looked down upon and people wishing you were dead. Tell me, Isaribi, have you ever heard of a Jinchuriki?" She shook her head. Jinchuriki are people who have a demon sealed inside them. Whether they are created to be used as a weapon or were created to save a village, Jinchuriki are treated the same. They are the outcasts of society. One day the greatest of the Biju, the Kyuubi no Yoko, attacked my home village of Konohagakure no Sato. The Yondaime Hokage knew there was no way for someone even as powerful as him capable of defeating the Kyuubi. The Yondaime was a noble man. He would never ask someone to do something if he was not willing to do it. So with a heavy heart he asked his wife, who was pregnant with their only child, a son, to induce the pregnancy 3 weeks early to use their son as the vessel of Kyuubi. So he arrived at the battle with his son in his arms and started the sealing process. He summoned the Shinigami, as only a god was powerful enough to power the seal to contain Kyuubi. But this came at a cost. You see, in order to do this, the user who summons the Shinigami will have their soul taken by him as payment. When the sealing was over and he was dying with his son in his arms, his closest friends arrived informing him that his wife had died shortly before him due to complications of the birth. Now knowing that his son would grow up without his parents, he made his last wish for the people to see the child who contained the Kyuubi as a hero who helped save Konoha, but his wish was not to be granted. For the first 5 years of his life the boy grew up hated and despised by the villagers and shinobi, not knowing why. They beat him and starved him, believing him to be Kyuubi incarnate, or would hurt him thinking they could hurt Kyuubi. The Sandaime had passed a law prohibiting anyone to speak of the Kyuubi in the boy, but the people found a way by that. Parents would tell their children to stay away from the boy, saying he was evil and a demon. On his 4th birthday the orphanage kicked him out and he lived on the streets for 6 months until the Hokage found him and got him the only apartment that would let him live in the slums. Then on his 5th birthday everything changed. He went out to celebrate with everyone else on the anniversary of Kyuubi's defeat, but the villagers would not allow that. They chased him into an alley where they gave him the worst beating of his life. They cut him with various weapons each coated in a different poison, then they slammed his head against the wall repeatedly until his skull cracked open. Then finally, as the boy was losing consciousness, he saw a ninja go through some hand seals for a kaiden jutsu and set him on fire. When he woke up, he met Kyuubi and learned why she attacked, and he met his parents as well as the Kyuubi. After he woke up in the hospital, he spent a year training at his clan estate in secret, then left the village on his 6th birthday to travel the world and become stronger. He promised to himself that he would return and make the people see that he was not the Kyuubi and become the best Hokage the village would ever see. So he traveled the world meeting friends and lovers, and now here I am. He finished with a smile. Isaribi had no idea what to say or how to react. This young man in front of her just told her of a life that she couldn't even imagine living through. How? If what you said is true, then how did you continue to survive day after day? Why do you continue to survive? She finally asked. He simply smiled and said, I do it for my precious people. I continue to fight and live to protect them. If it wasn't for the few people in Konoha that cared for me, I probably wouldn't have made it. If you are willing to give me a chance, I swear to protect you with my life. He reached out his hand to her and she slowly took it. He helped her up and hugged her. She was startled but relaxed in the embrace. During the next 6 months, Isaribi decided to stay with Naruto. He had healed her with his Ranpu Saisei Sosei, light, regeneration rebirth, technique, and she was so excited she kissed him, getting her first kiss. He had also showed her his life through the Ninpo Mukonren Vaza, ninja art, life viewing technique. When he mentioned it and she asked to see it, Naruto found her to be a sweet girl like Haku and Sasama, and their relationship got closer over the months. They traveled to each of the islands making up Sea Country, and when they arrived on Jiro Island they came upon an old compound that they found out was used by Orochimaru. Naruto sent some clones through the place to look around while he did with Isaribi. They came upon a room with a picture that had a young girl and an older version of the girl in the picture. They both had lavender hair and gray eyes. With the picture was a journal along with a necklace that the older woman in the picture was wearing. I think I've seen that girl before, but older, in Konoha before I left, Naruto thought. He read through the journal and learned her name was Mitarashi Anko. She was apparently Orochimaru's apprentice, and when he abandoned Konoha he took her with him, not informing her he wasn't coming back. By the time she found out, she was already labeled a missing nin and was afraid to go back, so she stayed with Orochimaru. It ends with her mentioning that Orochimaru was planning on giving her and 9 others a gift the next day. He picked up the objects and sealed them away to give back to their owner when he returns to Konoha. After a couple more hours, his clones found some various low-rank jutsu and various research ideas Orochimaru had. The most interesting thing they found, though, were documents showing that old Warhawk Danzo was working with Orochimaru after he left Konoha. He quickly sealed everything away and placed exploding tags around the compound and blew it up. One day Naruto and Isaribi decided to go diving around the islands off the east coast of Haha Island, where he found something very interesting. Flashback: he had let her buy some new clothes after he met her, and since she was still shy around him she didn't wear very revealing clothes, but as she got more comfortable around him she started wearing less. When she finally stepped out of her room at the hotel they were staying out, he couldn't help but think how sexy she looked. She was wearing a blue 2-piece bikini with green polka dots with sandals on her feet. He could see more of her slightly tanned skin and everything that came with it. Her still developing B-cup breasts, her lean legs, her wonderful hips, and in his opinion her greatest feature, her luscious ass. Isaribi was blushing as she watched Naruto look her over. He looked back up at her and smiled, saying, "You're beautiful, Isa-chan." She smiled at him and looked him over as well. She could see his well-muscled arms, his chiseled chest, a 6-pack turning into an 8-pack, his toned legs, his amazing ass in her opinion, and that bulge in his swim trunks that she couldn't wait to see. "You don't look so bad either, Naruto-kun," she said, then walked closer and kissed him softly on the lips. They smiled at each other as she pulled back. They left the hotel together holding hands and rented one of the better boats the island had to offer. It was in fact a small yacht, and Isaribi was sunbathing up front while Naruto was steering the ship. When they arrived they spent a couple hours exploring various places underwater. They had lunch on the yacht, and while Isaribi stayed on board to continue her sunbathing, Naruto continued to explore underwater. He came upon an underwater cave, and when he appeared on the other side he couldn't believe his luck. There in front of him were statues of turtles that created a path to a giant turtle statue that held a scroll in its mouth. "Q Heim, you wanna bet that's the legendary turtle contract?" he thought to his first love. That depends on what you're willing to bet, Naru-kun, she purred back. Naruto felt a shiver run up his spine and let her win this round. He approached the giant statue and felt like the smaller statues were watching him. He approached the giant statue and ran his hand over it. I wonder who it was that created these statues and carvings, he thought, appraising the masterful work. He pulled the scroll from the mouth of the turtle and opened it. He looked around to double-check the place was big enough to summon the boss, and after making sure it was, he signed it, and with a bite he went through the necessary hand seals and slammed his left hand on the ground, saying Kuchio's no jutsu. The smoke disappeared and there stood on 4 legs the biggest turtle he's ever seen. The turtle looked around and spotted its summoner. Hello, young one. You seem to have quite the luck. Fenikusu and Ryujin have spoken quite highly of you to me and the boss of the Tiger Clan. If you are ready, we shall begin your test. You already know what will happen if you shall fail. Are you ready? The giant green turtle asked. Hi, I am ready. Naruto replied. Very well. My test is a test of sacrifice. We shall see if you are truly willing to sacrifice your life for your precious people. With that said, the boss of the turtles blew out bubbles from its mouth and played various scenarios of Naruto sacrificing his life in each one to protect his precious people. Impressive. His resolve is truly amazing, thought the turtle. The visions faded and Naruto stood there panting from the mental exhaustion. Congratulations, Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. You have become the first summoner for the Turtle Clan. My name is Kame, boss of the Turtle Clan. We of course are very effective in areas with water. We also specialize in defensive jutsu. I look forward to our next meeting, young one. And with that he disappeared. Naruto just shook his head at having 3 of the 4 legendary contracts. Flashback end: when Naruto returned to the boat and calming down a worried Isaribi for being gone so long, he explained what happened. Isaribi was shocked that one of the legendary contracts was here in Sea Country and that she never found it, but congratulated Naruto with a long makeout session. Naruto and Isaribi were both now 14 years old and it was the end of January and the time came to leave. Naruto convinced Isaribi to travel to Kiri to stay with the others. He summoned a clone to explain to the others what happened in a dragon, and with a kiss she wouldn't be forgetting for a while, he placed her in front of the clone with a backpack carrying scrolls containing everything she owned and watched as they flew off. He boarded a boat at one of Haha Island's ports headed for Tea Country. It was an 8-hour trip, and when he arrived at Port City located at Tea Country's southern tip, he stumbled when he was walking off the ship as he received his clone's memories. Lucky bastard, he thought as he saw his clone making out with each of his girls. He heard Kyuubi laughing at him, which only made him mumble more. During his time in Tea Country, Naruto learned one of the prized techniques of his father, the Rasengan. When he read the directions for the technique he laughed for a few minutes but complied. He managed to complete it in one day. If his chakra control wasn't as good as it was, he knew it would have taken longer to accomplish. He was awed by its power and was shocked when he learned that the technique wasn't finished and what his father had planned for it. The first step was learning how to burst a water balloon by spinning the water inside in multiple directions at once using only the user's chakra, which emphasizes rotation. This is where his chakra control came in. The second step was for the user to burst a rubber ball, and since rubber is thicker and air is completely different from water, it forces the user to use denser chakra to break it. This step emphasizes power, and he had plenty of power. The last and final step was to combine both step 1 and 2 by spinning chakra inside a balloon without moving the balloon itself, emphasizing stability of the sphere shape. This step took most of the day to complete. By the end of the week he was able to make a Rasengan in each hand in an instant, and he was already thinking of ways to improve the Rasengan as well as add his elemental chakra to it. Naruto had maxed out his weights during the middle of July and applied gravity seals to his body. He had it currently set to 2x normal gravity as well as wearing his weights. When he read the instructions for the Hiraishin no Jutsu, it stated that he should have his gravity seals set to at least 3x normal gravity before he attempts it. It was now September and he was currently playing a piano in the hotel he was staying at. During his travels he picked up many hobbies, but playing the various instruments in the world was one of his favorites. When he finished he heard clapping and he noticed he had gathered an audience. He smiled at them and took requests and played for the rest of the night. When he retired to his bedroom he could have sworn he recognized one of the women in the crowd, and by the look on her face she must have thought he looked familiar as well. As he lay down he started going over everything since he left Konoha. He'd be returning in only a few months now, and he was both excited and nervous.
He started going over his skills to keep his mind off that for now. He was easily cage level. Kyuubi told him that he was stronger than the Zenin and was on par with the Sandaime in his prime. When she said that he was surprised, the Sandaime was the 5th strongest person to ever come from Konoha. His father Namikaze Minato first, Senju Hashirama second, Uchiha Madara third, Senju Tobirama fourth, Sarutobi Hiruzen fifth, followed by Hitaki Sakumo, Jiraiya, Senju Tsunade, Uchiha Itachi, Orochimaru and Hitaki Kakashi. The problem with Madara is finding a way to defeat him for good, and so far there was only one way Naruto could think to do that.
His ninjutsu was cage level easy. He'd mastered 6 of the 7 main elements and started working on his dark element a month ago.
Kyuubi had managed to write down a few jutsu she could remember the Rakuto Zenin used and some helpful hints he mentioned when she talked to him about it. The power of it was just incredible with just the low-level jutsu he was working with. He'd mastered his Hyoten and Mokuden sub-elements and was able to draw enough moisture from the air to use jutsu up to B rank in combat. Recently he had started working on Yoden, lava release, manipulation by combining fire and earth natures. Taijutsu was also cage level. He had mastered his father's style Maucho, bird of prey, his mother's style Hiryu, flying dragon, and made a guy's style Goken, which he rarely used as it was similar to his mother's style and he preferred his mother's anyways as it was slightly superior. Genjutsu was High Junin and could dispel any genjutsu he's come upon so far, as well as cast all C rank, most B rank, and a small handful of A rank. He was glad he had a photographic memory as that was a big help. Kenjutsu was cage level. His skill with his Kodachis and Dragon Sword was higher than his Knights of Whirlpool. He was able to improve using his elemental chakra in the Dragon Sword, and his skills in the hidden Mitsurugi Ryu style was getting better. He started on his next Fuinjutsu project. He was currently close to finishing his seals that would negate the Sharingan's copying abilities. His speed and strength had been lowered to high chunin when he added the gravity seals and had his chakra weights max out, but was easily cage level with the seals and weights off. If he dropped his chakra weights to 0 while leaving the seals on, it would increase to mid junin. He didn't even bother to see what it would be like if he turned off the seals and left his weights maxed, as he would never do that. With his 15th birthday coming up, he was close to absorbing Kyuubi's 8th tail, which would give him chakra reserves of about 17 cages including his own. His chakra control was cage level as well, but he had to constantly train to keep it there for now. When he went down for breakfast, he spotted the same woman from last night. He could tell from her stance she's had shinobi training, but the marks on her cheeks were what made him realize who this woman was. Arin, he thought. That was where he recognized her. She was the female Chunin on his father's team that left Konoha shortly after his father was sworn in as Hokage. He had seen a picture of her in his father's study and thought she was pretty back then, but now she was drop-dead gorgeous. She still had her brunette hair, but it was a bit longer now, reaching her mid-back, and had her brown eyes, but the rest of her body developed quite nicely. Her breasts had grown to a nice C-cup and her legs were lean and long. Her hips were wide and her ass was amazing, and to top it all off, her face looked even more angelic with those purple rectangle marks on her cheeks. He approached her and she was watching him. He held out his hand out, she grabbed it. He led her back up to his room where they ordered room service.
Who are you? Rin asked while waiting for their food.
My name is Namikaze Uzumaki Naruto. Only child and son of Namikaze Minato and Namikaze Uzumaki Kushina, and if I'm correct you would be Rin, the female member of my Otu-san's team when he was a sensei. Naruto said.
Rin was shocked that this young man claimed to be her sensei's son. But he does look a lot like him, she thought.
Kakashi knows the truth, but he doesn't know I know of my heritage. Naruto said. Rin's eyes widened again when he mentioned Kakashi. If you are who you say you are, then what are you doing out here? She questioned. Naruto sighed and she saw for a brief second so much pain in his eyes that she wasn't sure was possible. You know of the Kyuubi attack on Konoha almost 15 years ago, correct? She nodded and said. Yeah, I returned to Konoha to help with the injured and left before anyone knew I was there. Do you know how the Yondaime really defeated Kyuubi that day? Naruto asked. She nodded, then her eyes widened. You're the baby he used that day, aren't you? She asked. She saw him nod and he said. Father convinced mother to induce the pregnancy 3 weeks early. He knew the only way to defeat Kyuubi was to seal her, and only a newborn baby would be able to withstand the power Kyuubi possessed. Also, Otu-san was an honorable man and would not ask any other family if he couldn't do the same to his. She nodded at that and thought, "That's true. Still, I can't believe." She thought, then stopped and said, "Wait. What do you mean her?" Naruto chuckled and said, "I have learned many things throughout the years, and one of them would be the truth behind the Kyuubi's attack that fateful day." "What do you mean?" Rin asked. "If you would allow me, I have developed a technique that allows me to show people my life from the moment Kyuubi was sealed in me to right before I execute the technique," Naruto explained. She nodded, amazed at the capabilities of this jutsu. She watched him go through some hand seals and he called out Ninpo. Mukanran Waza, ninja art. Life viewing technique. She saw everything and was angered at how people could do that to a child and amazed at how he continued to live. After it was finished, she looked down, starting to cry, thinking, maybe if I stayed I could have helped him. All I did was run away from my pain, but he faced it and continues to face it, but he doesn't run. Naruto saw this and got up and picked her up, making her squeak, and sat her in his lap and turned her head to look him in the eyes. "Listen to me, Rin-chan. There was nothing you could have done. I've seen that look in my other precious people, so I know what you were thinking. You lost someone precious to you and you needed time to think and get to better know yourself. Don't think I'm ashamed of you for leaving Konoha, okay?" he said, hugging her to him. Rin blushed when he added, "Chan," to her name. Not even Obito did that, she thought solemnly. She quickly found herself getting comfortable in his arms and listened to him speak. He's so mature for his age and is a great leader, she thought again and nodded her head into his chest at the end. He chuckled at her and kissed the top of her head. "Rin-chan, I plan to stay in Tea Country till my birthday coming up and then heading back to Fire Country to spend time with the Fire Lord and his wife till the new year, as the graduation for my age group is January 10th. Will you stay with me until then and see where this goes? I know we've just met, but I know that you could become another woman I could love," Naruto said, looking her in the eyes. She slowly nodded, not believing what this young man was making her feel. He leaned in and gave her a soft kiss on the lips before pulling back, smiling at her and running his thumb over her cheek. Rin and Naruto spent every day together. He helped her with her medical ninjutsu and she helped him to learn more about the human body. They went out on a lot of dates and he would often play an instrument for her. She was having the best time in her life and she knew she was slowly falling in love with Naruto and he was falling in love with her. His 15th birthday came and they went out for dinner. She was wearing a small black dress that ended halfway to her knees and hugged her body amazingly and wore black high-heeled shoes. He wore a white dress shirt with the top 2 buttons unbuttoned, black jeans and black shoes. They smiled at each other and kissed, and when they pulled back, Naruto said, "You look absolutely stunning, Rin-chan." She smiled and gave him another kiss, which he gladly accepted, and she replied, "And you are looking even more handsome tonight, Naru-kun." She looped her arm around his and rested her head on his shoulder, as he was an inch taller than her, and they walked to their destination. They had a great evening, and after an hour of a heavy make-out session, Naruto left her hotel room and headed back to his. He was looking forward to seeing Kyuubi, as she always surprised him on his birthdays. When he went to sleep, he appeared in the seal. It was night and he could see the fake stars and full moon. "Only one more year, my love, until you're free," he thought. He continued to the house and walked in, and the only light was a flickering light coming from the bedroom. He walked up the stairs and opened the door to see candles around the room and his vixen there lying on the bed in red see-through lingerie, and that was it. Warning, lemon. Kyuubi smiled a seductive smile at her young lover and motioned for him to come over with her finger. Naruto obeyed and didn't strip, as the only thing he was wearing when he appeared in the seal were his boxers. Kyuubi slowly got up on her knees when he got on the bed. She ran her hands all over his body while they kissed. Her hand started rubbing his erection from the outside of his boxers and she smirked as he moaned. She brought her hand up and lowered it into his boxers, stroking his hard cock. "Hugh Heim," he moaned. He started massaging her large breasts that were barely contained through the skimpy lingerie. She started moaning as well, and she paused her ministrations to let him remove her only piece of clothing, then she removed his. He gently pushed her down onto her back and kissed her on the lips again. Their tongues battled, but he won. She moaned and whined when he left her mouth, only to shiver as he kissed along her jaw, down her neck, sucking on it.
He started kissing her left breast, licking her nipple while massaging her right breast with his other hand. He went from licking to sucking, getting her to moan louder. He switched to her other breast and gave it the same treatment.
He continued down her body, leaving kisses and nipples along the way. He arrived at her small patch of red pubic hair and rubbed his nose in it, making her shake in anticipation. He saw his prize. He'd done this many times, but it was amazing each time he looked at it. He slowly inserted a finger into her, making her moan and arch her back. He pumped it in and out. After a minute he heard her say, "More, Naru-kun. Give me more." He obeyed his vixen and entered 2 more fingers, going faster and faster. As she was about to climax, he stopped and pulled out, getting a whimper from her, only to squeak when he lifted her and he lied down on his back with her pussy above him and his long and hard cock in front of her. She got the message and took the whole thing into her mouth, feeling it twitch. He went back to work eating her pussy out. She continued to suck while he re-entered his fingers into her and started licking and gently nibbling her clit. 2 minutes later and both of them came. He erupted into her mouth with her swallowing as much as she could, and he placed his mouth over her pussy, enjoying her juices.
They took a short break and he was surprised when she started positioning herself over his member. "Are you sure?" he gently asked her. She smiled and said, "Yes. I love you with all my being and I want you to be my mate, Koichi." She then leaned down and kissed him while lowering herself down onto his member. They both moaned at the feeling until he felt a barrier. He looked at her and said, "I'll let you do this, Koi. This is yours to give and I'll be right here." She let a few tears run down her cheeks at how much he loved her and then raised herself up, then impaled his member, breaking her hymen and taking about 5 of his 8 inches. She bit her lip at the pain and started to cry. He leaned up and hugged her, letting her get used to it. A few minutes later she kissed him and used one of her hands to lower him down. She slowly started to grind against him, moaning at the mix of pain and pleasure. Naruto placed his hands on her hips to help steady her and was moaning at how tight she was. She started to bounce up and down, and when he thrust it up as she came down, they both screamed at the wonderful sensation. "Faster! Harder! Naru-kun!" she yelled. He obliged and started thrusting faster and harder into her with her rhythm. He got tired of being on bottom and flipped them over. They both moaned at the new sensation as he went much deeper. He lifted her left leg over his right shoulder and started thrusting even faster and harder than before. Kyuubi was in heaven when he flipped them over, then lifted her leg. "Oh Kami," she thought over and over. She had already cummed 3 times since they started 30 minutes ago, and he had yet to, but with the way his cock was twitching and how erratic he became, she knew it was soon. Naruto knew he was close to and wanted to come together with Kyuubi. He started rubbing her clit, getting her closer to the edge. She started playing with her tits and started sucking on them when she felt it coming. "Naru-kun, I'm coming," she yelled. "Me too, Haim," Naruto said. A few more deep thrusts, and with a yell of "Naru-kun" and "Kyuu-chan," they both cummed. He erupted into her, filling her womb and then some, and her coating his cock with her juices. He collapsed onto her large wonderful breasts and kissed them each until he leaned up and kissed her on the lips. "That was simply amazing, Naru-koi," Kyuubi panted out. "Indeed it was, my sweet vixen. Indeed it was," he said, and fell asleep between her tits. Kyuubi heard her lover snoring lightly and looked down and smiled at the scene of him between her breasts and could still feel him in her. She wrapped her arms around him and whispered, "Happy birthday, Koichi," and fell asleep as well. Lemon over. Naruto and Rin had left at the beginning of November. They arrived in the capital of Fire Country a week later, and like Naruto promised, he visited the Fire Lord and his wife. Both were happy to see Naruto again, and after a quick ninbo, Mu Kanran Vaza, ninja art, life viewing technique, to inform Nobunaga and Shijimi of what had happened since he left them, they spent the rest of their time together. Shijimi took a quick liking to Rin, much to Rin's embarrassment, and kept asking when Naruto planned to marry all of his girls, which made Rin blush and blush harder when she heard Naruto say, "soon." During his stay he met a woman by the name of Emi. She was beautiful with black hair that reached her mid-back, brown eyes, large C-cup breasts, long legs, wide hips and a great ass. She worked at a tailor shop that belonged to her parents. He invited her and her parents to dinner with the Fire Lord, and at first they thought it was a joke and didn't believe him until the Fire Lord himself appeared in their shop. Suffice to say, they had dinner that night at the palace. She was confused when she saw Rin there and how Naruto and her were acting and felt hurt until Naruto showed them his life. To say the three were shocked would be an understatement. Here in front of them was the son of the Yondaime Hokage and the king of Whirlpool. He could see the looks of confusion in their eyes and explained. The reason I showed you all of that is because of my bloodlines. I am allowed to marry at least 20 women for each bloodline, and since I have 3, that allows me to marry at least 60 women in Konoha alone due to a law there. There are already other women who I love like Rin-chan here, and each know of the law and have agreed to share me. I am telling you because I have slowly fallen for you, Emi. I love your smile, your laugh, the way you sneeze. I love everything about you, and I would like for you to join my family. As you each saw, I plan to reveal myself to the world during the Chunin exams in a year in Konoha, and I would love it if you were at my side the next day. He said, then gave her the most intense and passionate kiss she had ever received. Her parents were astounded at what they heard. Their little girl was being sought after by a king and the son of the Yondaime, and by the look on her face she didn't object, especially after that kiss. They quickly gave their blessing and asked for many grandchildren, much to the embarrassment of Emi and Naruto, who both blushed, and everyone laughed with the future parents-in-laws planning ways of teasing the couple. Naruto spent time with Emi and Rin, Nobunaga and Shimiji, and his future parents-in-law, where he was sure his face was going to stay red with all the teasing they did. It was January 1st and it was time for Naruto to return to Konohagakure. They had agreed to have Rin and Emi stay at the capital until the time came. He kissed both of them and hugged them, followed by a hug from Emi's mother, Shijimi, Emi's father, then finally Nobunaga. He walked out of the capital on the path towards Konoha. Get ready Konoha, because guess who's coming back.